Does the Bible have the value of pi wrong, as some atheists allege? That will be the subject of this presentation. To begin, let's define what pi is. Pi is the ratio of the circumference to the diameter in a circle and is defined by the formula pi equals circumference divided by diameter. The value of pi is 3.1416 rounded to 4 decimal places. Some atheists who take pleasure in mocking God and His Word read the following verse in the Bible and claim the value of pi is wrong, and therefore the Bible is in error. 2 Chronicles 4:2. Also he, Solomon, made a molten sea of 10 cubits from brim to brim, round in compass, and 5 cubits the height thereof, and a line or circumference of 30 cubits did compass it round about. These atheists are quick to calculate the value of pi by plugging circumference equals 30 and diameter equals 10 into the formula pi equals circumference divided by diameter in solving for pi. They of course come up with a value of pi equals 3 instead of 3.1416 and therefore claim the Bible is in error. But does this verse really prove pi is wrong and the Bible in error, or is there something that atheists are missing? Here is a diagram of what the molten sea actually looked like. As you can see, there is a top protruding brim, which atheists totally failed to consider in formulating their measurement for pi. So to answer atheists, there are at least 2 plausible ways to explain this so-called error for pi. The first explanation is there are actually 2 circumferences described in this verse, not one single circumference as atheists incorrectly assume. In other words, the 10-cubit diameter specified in the verse is measured from top outer brim to top outer brim and is associated with the top circumference around the top outer brim. And the 30-cubit circumference given is measured around the middle surface. The second explanation is the given numbers are only approximations. We'll now examine the first explanation in greater detail. As illustrated above, the 10-cubit diameter is measured from top outer brim to top outer brim and is associated with the top circumference around the top outer brim. The 30-cubit circumference is measured around the middle surface. We now need to calculate the top circumference and middle diameter, which will help to confirm the truth as we go forward. Notice that we'll be using the actual value of pi, 3.1416 rounded to 4 decimal places, in all these calculations. Given that the top diameter is 10 cubits, we can calculate the top circumference around the top outer brim using the formula circumference equals pi times diameter. So if circumference equals pi 3.1416 times diameter of 10, or circumference equals 31.416 cubits around the top outer brim. And given that the middle circumference is 30 cubits, we can calculate the middle diameter using the formula diameter equals circumference divided by pi. So diameter equals 30 divided by pi, 3.1416, or diameter equals 9.54929 cubits across the middle. We now have measurements for both circumferences and both diameters of Solomon's molten bowl. Keep these 4 measurements in mind. We will come back to them shortly. Is there any other scriptural evidence to substantiate this 2 circumference scenario? Yes, there is, but it has been concealed in God's Word. However, the good thing is, as Yeshua Jesus said in Luke 8:17, "Nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest, neither anything hid that shall not be known and come abroad." And also in Proverbs 25:2, "It is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter." This same account of the molten sea actually appears twice in Scripture, 2 Chronicles 4:2 and 1 Kings 7:23. But when we compare the 2 accounts, we discover that the account in 1 Kings 7:23 has one mysterious difference. We'll now examine both accounts in the original Hebrew, starting with the account in 2 Chronicles 4:2. 2 Chronicles 4:2. Also he made a molten sea of 10 cubits from brim to brim, round in compass, and 5 cubits the height thereof, and a line of 30 cubits did compass it round about. Here in the first account we see that the English word line is translated from the Hebrew word kav, Strong's number 6957, which means line or circumference. We'll now look at the second account in 1 Kings 7:23 and see how it compares. 1 Kings 7:23. And he made a molten sea, 10 cubits from one brim to the other. It was round all about, and his height was 5 cubits, and a line of 30 cubits did compass it round about. Again, as in the first account, the English word line is translated from the same Hebrew word kav, meaning line or circumference. But, unlike the first account, a second Hebrew word pronounced kaveh, Strong's number 6961, also meaning line or circumference, has been mysteriously added to the text in conjunction with the first Hebrew word kav. Both Hebrew words mean line or circumference, but have a slight variation in spelling. The question is, why two different Hebrew words within the same text meaning circumference, if only one circumference is referred to and meant to be understood within the verse? We believe the hidden meaning of this mystery is there are actually two circumferences identified in this verse, one that is specifically stated and one that is hidden within the context of the verse. Deeper investigation into this mystery, we feel, will confirm this truth. To further understand this mystery, let's examine more closely the spellings of the two Hebrew words translated line or circumference in the passage, kaveh and kav. It's important to understand that every Hebrew letter has a unique numeric value. When the numeric values of all the letters of a word are added up, this sum total is referred to as the word's gematria. The following chart lists the Hebrew letters and their numeric values. The three Hebrew letters highlighted in this chart are the three Pacific letters dealing with the two Hebrew words we are examining, kaveh and kav. These letters are kof, having a numeric value of 100, vav, having a numeric value of 6, and hey, having a numeric value of 5. The first Hebrew word kaveh, shown here, is comprised of the Hebrew letters kof, vav, and hey, and therefore has a numeric value of 100 plus 6 plus 5, or 111. The second Hebrew word kav is comprised of the letters kof and vav, and therefore has a numeric value of 100 plus 6, or 106. Keep these numbers in mind. We'll examine their significance very shortly. Here again is the molten bowl displaying the four measurements we said we would come back to. Using these measurements, we now want to look deeper into this mystery and explore the relationship between the two circumferences, C1 and C2 labeled above, and the two different Hebrew spellings of circumference, kaveh and kav. To do this will require a bit of math, so please bear with us. The middle circumference, C1, can be defined by the equation C1 equals pi times D1, which can also be expressed as pi equals C1 divided by D1. Likewise, the top circumference, C2, can be defined by the equation C2 equals pi times D2, which can be expressed as pi equals C2 divided by D2. And from these two equations, we can then form the equation C2 divided by D2 equals C1 divided by D1 equals pi, which says the ratio of the top circumference to its diameter is equal to the ratio of the middle circumference to its diameter, which is equal to pi. Now, if we bring this last equation up to step 1 in the top yellow area and perform the series of algebraic operations on it, outlined in steps 2 through 6, we will derive the last equation displayed in step 6, C2 divided by C1 equals D2 divided by D1, which says the ratio of the top circumference to the middle circumference is equal to the ratio of the top diameter to the middle diameter. Now, bringing this last equation from step 6 down and substituting the four measurements from our Molten Sea diagram into it, we can calculate this actual ratio. So we have 31.416 divided by 30 equals 10 divided by 9.54929, which ratio is 1.0472. The question we now want to ask is, are the two circumferences C1 and C2 and the two variant spellings of circumference, kave and kav, in any way connected? The answer is yes, they are profoundly connected, as we'll now see. Recall that the first Hebrew word kave had a numeric value of 111, and the second Hebrew word kav had a numeric value of 106. Now, in the same way that we calculated the ratio of our two circumferences, C1 and C2, we can calculate the ratio of our two circumference spellings, kave and kav. To find this ratio, we divide 111 by 106, which, amazingly, we find is also equal to 1.0472, the exact same ratio as our two circumferences, C1 and C2. Since both ratios are exactly equal, the top circumference, C2, corresponds precisely to the first circumference spelling, kave, and the middle circumference, C1, corresponds precisely to the second circumference spelling, kav. To reiterate what we've just shown, the ratio of the top and middle two circumferences, C2 and C1, around the bowl is exactly equal to the ratio of the gematria of the two Hebrew spellings of circumference, kave and kav. This means there is an exact one-to-one correspondence between the two spellings of circumference and the two circumferences around the bowl. This is also positive confirmation, if not proof, that the bowl had two circumferences, as the two different spellings of circumference suggest, and not just one circumference as atheists falsely assume. More importantly, it also shows that the value of pi is absolutely accurate in the Bible, since the actual value of pi, 3.1416 rounded to 4 decimal places, was used to calculate both the top circumference and the middle diameter, which in turn were used to derive this ratio, 1.0472. By virtue of having the exact same ratio, there is a direct correlation between the two Hebrew spellings of circumference and the two circumferences around the molten bowl. They are mysteriously linked together mathematically by this ratio, which itself was derived from measurements calculated using the actual value of pi. To demonstrate how they are linked, if you multiply the middle circumference by this ratio, you get the top circumference. And conversely, if you divide the top circumference by this ratio, you get the middle circumference. There is another interesting detail that comes to light as we show the value of pi is completely accurate in the Bible. It concerns the Hebrew letters used in the two spellings of circumference, kav and kave. Amazingly, the word pi itself mysteriously appears hidden within both spellings, which is clearly a secret witness of the truth of pi coming to light in this mystery. Hebrew, unlike English, is read from right to left. The Hebrew letters Kof, Vav spell kav, or circumference, in Hebrew when read from right to left. But at the same time, they secretly spell pi in English if you treat the Hebrew letter Kof as an English P and the Hebrew letter Vav as an English I. Not only that, the Hebrew letter He within the second Hebrew word kave, as you can see, very closely resembles the Greek symbol for pi. Is Yahweh showing us esoterically within the Hebrew spelling of circumference that he knows what pi is as well as its intrinsic role in a circumference's calculation? Yahweh, of course, knows everything about pi because he created all things. In conclusion, those who seek to mock God and his word should take heed. In his word he warns in Galatians 6:7 and Hebrews 10:30-31, "Be not deceived, God is not mocked. Vengeance belongs unto me, I will recompense, says Yahweh. It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God."